And welcome back to the Nose Plays Endless Space 2. Today we are taking our very first look together at the Riftborn. I have been hyping up my Riftborn game now for a couple of videos. If you haven't checked out my Vaulter series that I recently finished, you should check that out. I focus on boarding pods and some neat strategies with the Vaulters. But in the process of doing that, I came across some videos that I had seen in the past on the Riftborn, and I wanted to try to develop my own strategy from different ideas that I picked up from other players on YouTube and just my own pretty detailed understanding of the game. So I went ahead and played a couple games with the Riftborn and came up with some good ideas that I think are going to work out well for us. So we're going to attempt to see if any of the things that I learned in my first couple of attempts sticks and actually makes any sense for the rest of you guys. I have made one major change to the game that I think some of you will appreciate, and I will definitely appreciate because it's just one of the most annoying parts of the game. I'm keeping everything mostly the same here, but I have disabled the Academy quest, and I've also disabled the Awakening DLC. I don't like what they did with the Academy and the Awakening DLC, and I don't like the Academy quest in general, so we're just going to get rid of it, and I'm not going to deal with it for at least one game. So this will be a good indication of what the game might play like if you disable that particular content. And then galaxy-wise, I don't think I've made any adjustments to this from the last game we played, so it's going to be the same. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and get into the game, and we're going to play with the Riftborn. So if you're a fan of Amplitude Studios and you've played some of their other games, you know they have some very unique and interesting takes on factions. And this faction is really cool because it's one of those factions that sort of turns everything upside down and turns it on its head a little bit. We'll talk about what I mean by that when we get into the game here, but everything's just a little bit different with this faction. It's one of the reasons why I've stayed away from them, because they take a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of research and a little bit of study to figure out how to play. Also, they have some of the coolest intro cinematics, so if you haven't seen that, you should watch it. And their music, which you can hear if you listen very carefully right now, is just really neat, really fantastic. I think they're the only faction that utilizes the piano, but it's just really, really cool. I know SB has a lot of praise for this faction and its aesthetic. And I definitely like the aesthetic of the faction as well. It's kind of neat. Some of their mechanics are a little bit reminiscent of the Broken Lords in some ways, but a little bit different as well. So they're still completely unique to anything else in the series, really. Even going back to Endless Space 1, there was nothing quite like the Riftborn. And so it's neat that Amplitude Studios can just keep making these really unique and interesting factions to play. This first video may just be an outline of my plans and the faction itself, and then I may actually pause the feed and then reactivate the feed. So we'll see how this goes. But there's a lot of information that I want to cover on these guys before we actually get anything done. And I'm not going to bother with any of those pop-ups because they're pretty pointless. So, let's talk a little bit about what makes the Riftborn interesting. First of all, I guess we'll just kind of go down this list. So we start with Epistis citizens. We get 1 Epistis on our homeworld. The Epistis add 5 food on sterile worlds, and they also add a little bit of industry. They're ecologists, which is kind of weird, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. We also start with Riftborn population, which are utterly amazing, and we'll take a good look at them. They're the best population in the game by far, I think. We also have this Wary Travelers trait. This is a negative faction trait. It gives us -1 movement points on all of our ships, so our ships have a little bit of trouble moving around initially. I have a solution for that, and we'll talk about that. They're biophobic, which is an interesting term. Basically, they don't like worlds that are fertile, and they prefer worlds that are sterile. So anytime that you find a sterile world, you're going to get a free +10 approval per population on sterile worlds. And then on fertile worlds, you're going to get -2 approval. Also, sterile worlds get an increase to their population cap, while fertile worlds have a reduction to their population cap. The whole way that Riftborn colonize worlds is sort of upside down to the rest of the factions, and that's a really important aspect of their faction, and a really important aspect of how we're going to take advantage of their faction. They start with plasma metallurgy, which means that from turn 1 they can mine Hyperium, and they do have one of the 2 industry buildings, starting industry buildings. They also start with xenobiology, which gives them one of the best science buildings in the game, and definitely the early ones. They start with a titanium mine and a Hyperium mine. These are poor deposits, so they will only produce 1 per turn, but we actually start with both, which is really important. And similar to the Vaulters, these guys use titanium and Hyperium in various other ways than other factions might. So it's important to have a supply of these things, and important how you decide to utilize them. Let's take a look over here. We can see that our government is a republic. One of the effects of the republic is that all of the laws have an intensified effect. So for example, Toys for Boys normally provides plus 20 approval on all of your systems, but the Republic version of the law is plus 30%, which is nice. We also have the Beachhead bylaw, which is the industry law that helps us settle outposts, and it increases our outpost industry, which is interesting because we actually use industry to produce population. We do not use food hardly at all, although our minor civilizations will still use food. So it's not completely worthless on us, but it's something we're not going to focus on, and we're not going to utilize a ton. Also, the approval bonus for the 5 turns is quite a bit higher than what would normally be had with other governments. And then finally, because we have ecologists, we have the Green Fertility Bill, which does add extra food per anomaly. If we have an anomaly on a planet, all the population on that planet produce extra food. And then a 10% bonus per anomaly on colonized systems. So every planet that has an anomaly will add 10% to the total output of the system. Systems with lots of anomalies are therefore very good for us if we decide to keep this law. Okay. And then this screen is very important. So the Riftborn. Every Riftborn population produces 5 dust, 5 science, 5 industry, and does not require food to grow, but instead requires industry to grow. And we'll have to actually construct them in our queue in order to do that. This is incredibly powerful. 15 Fidzy per population is huge, and when you apply that in conjunction with the planet gathering rates, it's downright absurd how effective growing population of Riftborn can be in the early game. We're definitely going to be taking advantage of that. Also, getting to 10 population increases the industrialists' laws, which are important to us because we're mainly industrialists. And most of the industrialist laws are going to be really beneficial for us. Getting to 20 gives you a plus 15% bonus to all industry on systems that include at least one Riftborn. And so this is really, really powerful bonus that we can rush in the early game because we have a lot more control over our population growth than many of the other factions that rely on food. They basically have to build food buildings and sort of wait for things to happen. We don't necessarily have to do that. Finally, wormhole travel consumes only half of a ship's remaining movement points. This, once we get the wormhole technology, provides us a significant bonus to our movement between constellations. It's not all that important to get to this, but it is something that we're very, very capable of doing, probably faster than any other civilization in the game. The only civilization that I can think of that might rival the Riftborn in the speed at which they grow population would be the Unfallen, because of their focus on food. Okay, let's take a quick look at the Epistis. The Epistis are an interesting faction, and actually let's come back to the Riftborn. So one of the things to note here is every time we do anything that gives us industrialist influence to our government, we get a bigger than normal drop in the bucket, so to speak. Also, every time we do anything that has to do with science, we get a little drop equal to the science in the industrialist bucket, which means if we focus on science, we'll never actually lose the industrialist as a government entity. So that's important to note. We're also really, really low on ecology, so anytime we do any ecological things, we don't get much ecological support, which actually kind of makes it hard to keep the ecologists in power if you focus on Riftborn. The Epistis are like the opposite of us, which is very weird to have your starting civilizations sort of opposites. So they get tons of ecology support whenever we do anything with ecologists, but anytime they do anything with industrialist support, they get almost no industrialist support, a very small amount, but they actually get a pretty large amount of ecologist support. And so this is kind of interesting, and I'm not 100% sure what the best way to take advantage of this is just yet, but it's definitely something to be aware of. They're also anti-industrialists, which is what this represents. So very interesting that we get this weird dichotomy of factions or populations. Interestingly enough, though, if you do manage to grow enough of these guys in a system, they will add 20% reduction on improvement construction on systems. So all improvements that you build in a system that has at least one Epistis will actually be reduced by 20%, which means you only need 80% of the construction cost to complete it, which is a huge benefit and allows you to really, really, really accelerate buildings, and particularly ones that are very expensive. Law-wise, I'm not sure that we're going to mess with this too much on turn 1. We do start with these two, but we're probably not going to be able to keep the ecologists in power. And then also, one thing to note about the Riftborn is that they do not have a population booster, so there's no way to double these rates like you can with many of the other factions. But any minor civs that we pick up will still have normal boosters. Okay. So, where to go from here? I guess technology-wise, we'll talk about what I think are the best early technologies for these guys. There are 3 early technologies that I want to focus on in the early game with the Riftborn. I'm not 100% cemented on the order in which these need to happen, but this needs to happen as early as possible for 2 reasons. Number 1, Xeno-Industrial Infrastructure is still a really good building. It's not as good with Riftborn as it is with many of the other factions, but it's still good. And also titanium. Titanium is super important to us. We need titanium as quickly as possible, and we start with a titanium deposit in our home system every single game. So, in my opinion, this is almost always going to be number one. Number two and number three, because of the ability to build population in place of buildings, we do not need to focus on any technologies that unlock buildings other than the Xeno-industrial infrastructure in the early game. What would be very, very beneficial to us is to have information on what is around us. And so the two technologies that help us expand and improve our knowledge of what's around us are going to be machine bacteria and baryonic shielding. And these two in particular are super important. Machine bacteria early on is going to give us much better probes that regenerate much more quickly, and this is super important to us, and I'll explain why. But basically, we're going to have fewer ships with probes in the early game than we might normally have, and so the ones that we do have collecting curiosities need to be really efficient at it. The second thing is warp drives are really important to us. At some point, we're going to uncover everything in our own constellation, and we want our scout ships to immediately be able to get out and start colonizing other areas. So this is pretty important to get early. It's not important to get right away, but it's one of those in your first like 5 or 6 technologies that you're definitely going to want to pick up. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to queue those two things up for now. And I might actually queue them up in the opposite order. No, let's go ahead and get the titanium going first. Okay. So what else do I want to talk about? Let's talk about these things. Singularities are powerful buffs, temporary buffs that we can add to any system that can dramatically improve the rates of everything that happen in that system. The compression singularity is the most important one, and you're going to want to build as many of these as possible in the early game and get them running on every system that you can. The reason that we want to prioritize titanium so quickly is so that we can get these things built. The compression singularity always costs 20 titanium, 100 dust, and takes 1 turn to produce. Once it's produced, it sits up here in the queue, in which case at any point in time you can activate it on a system that does not already have one. And I believe it gives you 10 turns of bonuses. And the bonuses are quite extensive. The most important bonuses probably being 100% experience gains on heroes and 25% to all FIDSI output. That is huge, and that can be very, very powerful, and it can accelerate your systems quite dramatically. Taking just a moment to look at our system, this is not a great starting system for us. And the main reason that I say that is we only have one hot world, and I will say this time and time again throughout this series, the Riftborn are the kings of hot worlds. They excel at any planet that is hot. Hot sterile is even better. Lava planets, ash planets, deserts, arids, those are all prime real estate for Riftborn, and those are exactly the kind of systems that you need to be scouting for as you scour the map. Unfortunately for us, we only have one hot world. We did end up with Eden Incense, which is not a bad tier 1 system development. And we also ended up with a boreal planet with an average titanium and hyperium deposit. I do not believe that this is typical, but this does happen occasionally. And so being in a system where we have two planets that both have hyperium and titanium is actually a pretty good start for us. So this is not a terrible start by any means. The fact that we only have one hot world is kind of bad, but the titanium and hyperium deposit probably make up for that. Also, the fertile world is okay, but we don't have any other like the xeno-industrial infrastructure and also the public-private partnerships are not going to really benefit from this system as much as they could from planets that have more fertile or temperate. So that's important to note. In the early game, there are a couple of things that are going to bottleneck my plans, and I'm debating how to transition into what my plans are exactly. So, let's talk about food and population growth. Every population that you build on your system gives you one Riftborn. And so we can, for instance, queue a machine embodiment up. This will construct a single Riftborn in 4 turns. That Riftborn will be placed on a planet just like a normal population, except that in addition to normal FIDSI output, which comes in on this planet at 9434, so what is that, 8, 17, 20? So that's 20 points of FIDSI. Keep in mind that the food is sort of almost ignorable. We produce an extra 15 on top of that. So every population that we drop produces almost double what most planets' output are. For example, this is 12, 15, 16. We produce 15 on our own. And the food can be ignored for the most part. So that's 6, 9, 10. And then our population produces 15. Over here, we've got 14 basically, and our population produces another 15. And so our population is producing 30 units or more, if you count the food, on all of these homeworlds. Now, most buildings do not produce much more than 30 units of FIDSI. Cerebral Reality is 30 units of FIDSI. Public-private partnerships is 10 per fertile, 10 per planet, 10 per temperate. If we were to build this right now, all we would get is 10 science. This will take 7 turns to construct for 10 science. This will take 4 turns to construct for almost 30 plus FIDSIs. This becomes the primary thing that you want to build in almost every scenario with the Riftborn. This is only 20. This is going to be dependent on our population totals and also if we have any strategics on planets. And we actually have 2 planets with strategics, so this is super good. But it probably doesn't need to be built right away because a single Riftborn population will outperform this building until we get enough population in total. Now, raw FIDSIs are really, really valuable. Not all FIDSIs are created equally, and we all know that industry is king in the early game, and food is secondary in the early game for most populations or most other players. But for us, it's all about the industry. So basically, whatever builds more industry is what we want to construct in our queue. And many, 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 many times, that's going to be a population of Riftborn. Now, each population of Riftborn does increase the cost of the next one on a system. but not between different systems. And so there's several things that we're going to do. First of all, we have up to 6 systems that we can colonize before we start to have any approval penalties. So the biggest thing that holds back other factions from colonizing at a very, very rapid rate is whenever you build a colony, you start with an outpost, and then you have to truck food, which slows down the growth of your main system, and then eventually it becomes a colony, and it starts with 1 population, and then it takes a long time for you to have enough food to grow your second, and so on and so forth. The Riftborn do not have those issues, and so this is the faction that is custom designed to go as wide as possible. And what that means is we need to get out in the galaxy and find as many systems as we can that we can get onto quickly, and preferably on any world that is hot. So we're looking for lava worlds, we're looking for ash worlds, we're looking for deserts, we're looking for arid worlds, because any planet that has high industry is going to be much more valuable for us than anything else. So how are we going to go about doing that? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to assign our hero to our fleet. And this fleet starts with 2 probes, and fortunately for us, we have 1 curiosity, so we can actually get a little bit of XP by scouting them. Low gravity is a positive. That's actually really good. +2 approval, +2 industry. And then we got a little bit of influence, which is nice, which means we can actually run a law if we wanted to. But we're not actually going to keep these guys together, nor are we going to keep these ship designs. Both of these characters, or both of these ships, are going to have very, very unique roles. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to come over here to my shadow. I want to edit it. Notice that we start with a probe, an engine, and a gun. We do not need all of these things. What we need is this. Now, this is a new tactic that I'm going to start implementing in many of my future gameplay. One line of thinking used to be that probes were king of exploration. And especially when there was the old probe exploit where you could pay to retrofit your probes and restock them with dust, that made a lot of sense. You could uncover a lot of territory with a ship that had a lot of probes, and then you would just regenerate the probes with dust periodically and get a lot more, and you could get tons and tons of information about your surroundings. However, there is an alternative to that, and since that regenerating probes with dust has been nerfed and you can no longer do it, the strategy of using probes to uncover territory is not as efficient as it used to be. In fact, it's actually pretty inefficient and usually pretty bad. But one of the things that I've come to realize is at the beginning of the game is the safest point at any point in the game to send ships with nothing but speed rocketing through the galaxy and uncovering every node possible. So we're going to equip our first scout ship with no probes, and we're going to equip it with maximum engines. And even though our ships start with a movement speed penalty, we're actually going to have 12 movement, and we're going to rocket around this constellation until we've uncovered every node. And at the beginning of the game, there are no pirates to worry about. The enemy ships are pretty inconsequential. They're not likely to threaten you much, if at all. You're going to be able to get around very, very quickly. And the goal is, by the time we get to, like, say, turn 10 or 15, we want to have the entirety of our constellation uncovered so that we know every single node, and every single player that is on it, and also where the pirates are going to land. We need to know all of those things, and the pirates usually drop around turn 15. So if this ship is able to uncover most of or all of the node by then, it will have done its job no matter what happens after that. We can also retrofit these guys in the future if we want to change them and make them more viable. We'll talk about the military uses of these ships later on, but this is what I want to do for now. So we're going to outfit that ship. We're going to upgrade it. And then the first thing that I'm going to do after uncovering that curiosity is I'm going to detach it from our hero and send it down the lane. And we've already come in contact with the Cephalurus. These are actually pretty interesting. They're industrialists, so they would be really good for us to pick up. +2 on fertile planets, +1 normally. Workspace oddity, they get extra industry on systems that have anomalies, which is pretty powerful. And they provide more dust, which is useful to us. That's pretty good for us. I like that a lot, and that's actually going to move this up in my priority. I don't know when I'm going to get this, but it's certainly high on my priority list now because we have such a good miner sieve right next door to us. This ship does not have any more probes, it looks like, because we retrofitted it, but we do have a little bit of movement left. So let's go ahead and head down this lane. And now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to retrofit our hero ship. And our hero ship actually needs to have some probes. So we're going to use our hero ship to sort of scout things with probes. Now the decision that we have to make is, do we want 7 movement and 2 probes, or do we want 4 movement and 4 probes? I tend to think 7 and 2 is probably the better retrofit, but there can be a case to be made for the other, especially if the lanes are pretty short. I'm going to take a look here. There's only one curiosity that's available, so I think the engine speed's actually going to be the more important. So we're actually going to go with engine probe. Pull all of this off. He is not going to be out and about for too long. And then we'll send him down the lane. And it's going to take a couple of turns for him to regenerate some probes. Finally, our Geist. We need to look at this ship design. So, this ship design is probably fine as it is. One of the things that I'm actually going to do, though, before I do anything else, is I'm going to pull off both of these probes. And we're going to apply this design. And I think I'm just going to move him here for now. Oh, do I? I think actually, do I want to send him down the lane? Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get him moving down this lane. We'll have time to backtrack if we need to, if this turns out to be a really good spot. But we're going to send both of these down the lanes. Okay. Now that we've got our ships all taken care of, this is the strategy that I would generally use at the beginning of the game. So the most important thing that you're going to do is you're going to scout with your hero and your scout ship combined, everything you can. Retrofit your hero, retrofit your scout ship, send your scout ship with nothing but engines out to explore. And your hero is going to be the one that needs to get the XP from all of the curiosities anyways. Okay. Um, then, depending on your situation, and I think looking at where we're at, it's pretty good bet that we're at the end of our constellation. So there's really only going to be one direction that we really need to go, which means having one of these ships is probably enough. But what we're really going to need is these guys. We're going to need as many of these guys as we can, and I'm going to start with 3 in the construction queue, but we might actually build as many as 4 or 5. And then we're going to use our dust income to supplement them. Okay, now why am I doing this? The reason I'm doing this is because there is no penalty to the Riftborn for having multiple colonies running at the same time like there is for every other faction. All the other factions, when you run more than one colony, pulls food from your first system. This does not do that. Every one of these can colonize on its own through industry and maybe through buffs using strategics, which we'll talk about when we get to that point in the game. But they do not pull resources from this system and slow its growth down. And so we can actually expand very, 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 very quickly and get basically a mile wide and an inch deep. That's what we need to try to do. So we're going to grab every single system that we can see, and in order to do that, we need to start building these. Now, another really, really interesting fact that you need to understand about the Riftborn are this technology and this technology. These technologies have a unique trait that is not immediately evident, and one of those is that they do not allow for rollover. So most of the time, whenever you complete the construction of something, any leftover industry will roll over into the next thing in the queue. Both this and this will not. However, they will accept rollover into them. And so the way that I'm going to continue to periodically grow my empire is I'm going to queue a population behind whatever's here. And then anytime that this gets completed, the rollover will get added and a portion of this will get completed. And then I'm going to move it down the queue. And we're just going to keep doing this, and eventually this is going to get completed from the rollover, if that makes sense. Or it will make more sense, instead of doing the rollover at some point, it'll get completed in one turn and we'll just leave it in the queue. But until it's completed in a single turn, we want to minimize the amount of rollover lost by building these. So that's why we're always going to build something and then one of these. This one is interesting because our main population do not generate manpower, but we can convert industry into manpower if we want to. And one of the things that's neat that I discovered when I was playing around the other night is that if you don't want to waste an entire turn's worth of industry building manpower, but you could use a little bit, if you put this in queue behind whatever you're constructing, when it completes, the rollover will still construct whatever portion of that rollover into manpower. So it won't give you as much as a full turn's worth of industry, but it will give you a little bit, and so you can kind of trickle manpower into the bucket, so to speak, by queuing this up. Now this is very micro intensive, and even more so when you realize that we're going to have something like 10 systems or more by turn 50. But it's one of those things that actually can help pay off. So this is going to get started. We're going to get our second Geist constructed, and we're going to move on from here. Now, I don't know that there's a whole lot else that I want to do this turn, other than maybe consider running one of these laws. The green fertility bill uh, doesn't do hardly anything for us because our home planet doesn't have anomalies and we haven't colonized any of the other worlds yet. This doesn't do anything for us because we're not running an outpost. Toys for Boys doesn't do anything for us. Actually, it does. But I actually don't know that I want to run it. 30 approval would be enough to get us above 65, which does put us at happy. But that increases food and influence output, which are both pretty insignificant at this point in the game. And so we don't want to lose a large quantity of industry to get a very tiny amount of food or influence. So I think at this point in time, there's no reason to run anything law-wise. Is this where I want to end my turn? I think it is. And hopefully, after 40 minutes of conversation... Oh, we have a hack. Well, we should definitely do the hack. These guys have no hacking defenses yet, so we can actually take advantage of that. And we should. Okay. Well, it looks like I made the right choice as to which direction to send our colony ship. This is kind of unfortunate, but what I can do with this ship is send him this way for now. Notice how fast he can move. The hero will have to wait another turn before we get any probes up. And we're 3 turns away from completing that. We're 2 turns away from completing xenolinguistics, which means we'll start accumulating titanium every turn. Right now we're only accumulating Hyperium, which is good, but we really want the titanium. Oh wow, okay. Well, how much movement do you have left? 1 movement. I guess we'll send you this way. And I will actually wait a turn on you. We do have a curiosity here. We'll be able to scout that. Destructive Salvager is pretty worthless. Pretty terrible. However, that does increase our value with them, so that's good. And we'll go ahead and move him down the lane. So far we're in a pretty rough start. I'm not super excited about our start so far. What can we do to pivot this a little bit? One of the things that's going to be of big help is getting this world colonized. So we need to find the boreal planets. And now would maybe be a good time to talk about what planets we can colonize. So all of the planets are sort of flipped on their head or shuffled around. And we actually colonize the worst planets first and the best planets last, so to speak. So we start with planets that are pretty crappy in terms of what we can colonize. And then we start with like the snow worlds. You'll notice that this is steppes and tundra, savanna, Mediterranean, arid, which is pretty important to us. There's 2 over here, monsoon and forest. Up here is Terran worlds. Remember, this is normally lava. We actually start with the ability to colonize lava. Gas giants are still in their normal spot. Jungle and boreal. So boreal is the one that we want to get to in order to get the extra mining. That's going to be a little bit difficult to do. Also, Atoll and Ocean Worlds are over here. So you'll have to remember that we can colonize the crappy worlds first. So we start with the ability to colonize things like desert, to colonize things like ash, lava, ice worlds, and so Arctic worlds. We actually do have an anomaly here. That would make that law pretty reasonable, but I think we're just going to go ahead and get this finished for now. Once we get this finished, I may go ahead and do my first one of those until we see more of this constellation. The constellation that you started can play a significant impact into how fast of a start you get with the Riftborn. Alright, perfect. So we're going to send our first colony ship right there. And our hero is also going to head that direction because there's some curiosities over there. And this guy, I'm going to go ahead and just set him to auto-explore because he doesn't have any other job but to auto-explore every node that he can. The first thing that I see is something I like a lot. A huge lava world, a desert world, and a savanna, which is not bad. Savannah is not one that we're going to be able to colonize, but this huge lava and this desert are really, really important for us. We're going to take advantage of that. So now I feel a little bit better about our start. We do have the Xeno-industrial infrastructure. Unlike most games, we're not going to immediately try to build this, but we are going to immediately start collecting titanium, which is super important to us. And also, we've successfully hacked. I could create a back door, but I think we're just going to like rapidly try to improve our image with these guys and then just keep hacking them over and over again and see if we can't get to the quest that way. Once we get to 50, we'll be able to assist them in a quest, and then once we assist them in a quest, we might be able to take over their civilization or get them to join us, so to speak. Alright, it kind of looks like maybe these guys connect. It would be unfortunate if this guy has to come all the way back, but it's not the end of the world. He's very, very fast. Okay, good. Perfect. Alright, so the first part of our quest, we get 3 choices. Explore 5 curiosities with a hero of level 3 or higher. Have a system with 9 improvements total. Or reach 50 points of relations with 2 minor civilizations. If at this point in the game you've uncovered 2 minor civilizations, this one is not outside of reach, but this one is almost always going to be the easiest one to achieve. We don't generally want to have our hero out and about for so long that they get to level 3 and then search 5 curiosities. We're going to want to put them on our planet to govern at some point, and so this one is one that I would almost never do. However, if you were interested in keeping the ecologist party and you wanted to do something with the ecologist, this might be the only way to actually get enough ecological influence, so to speak, to keep them in power. We're not going to worry about them so much. So we're going to go ahead and take the easiest of the 3, in my opinion. And we now have our second colony ship. Okay, looking here, we have an arid and an arid. So this is actually a pretty reasonable system for us to grab. also more Eden Incense. This would be really good for us if we want to use Eden Incense as our Tier 1 system development. And then over here we have Savannah Worlds, also with Eden Incense, but Savannah Worlds are not good for us. These would be good for other civilizations, but not for us. So this is actually a pretty poor system for us. The arid worlds can be collected through this one, so we want to queue that one up. And I think we're probably going to let things ride as they are. Alright. We can already go ahead and colonize this. And this is what you want to see. You want to see lots of this when you're playing the Riftborn, because lava worlds are king. They're the best thing ever. Okay. As before, we don't use food to construct our population. We use different stuff. And normally, you would use food. Well, lava worlds are pretty crappy for food, and it would take a really long time to get a colony started on a lava world. But we actually use industry. And so the industry that we are collecting will construct a new population in 12 turns and start a colony. So we have an outpost, we'll get a new colony in 12 turns. We can actually accelerate that with Hyperium, which adds 25 industry for 10 turns, or Titanium, which I would rarely if ever do, which adds 100% of its current output for 10 turns. You can also use manpower to steal food. I don't know how this works because it still says food, but I think it actually converts it to industry for you, and does increase or decrease, in this case. Increase your industry, decrease the number of turns. This is why lava worlds are so great, because they have really, really high industry. So they actually get done pretty quickly. And in a few turns, we can actually accelerate this if we wanted to, but we're probably going to save this for the next one. What else do I want to say about this, if anything? I think that's probably it. Save the titanium. Do not use titanium for these early ones, at least. Maybe later in the game you can use this, or if you're racing another player, you can use this, but otherwise we want to save the titanium for these singularities. Alright, so 12 turns, we'll have that one. I actually have another one, and we need to edit this because we sped up its ship design by adding, or by removing, the modules. Now I can actually get up to 3 engines on this and give it a speed of 11, but I don't think that's necessary. I think a speed of 5 is probably okay, and that will save us a little bit in dust. And so I'm going to go ahead and apply this design. We'll go ahead and bring him out and retrofit him, and then we're going to send him on his way. Now remember, we actually have access to this world if we can get arid researched in time. Machine bacteria is still 3 turns away. I could actually move rare earth foams to the front of the queue and get that done in 4 turns. I think I'm actually going to do that. We're quite a few turns away from the next one of these. Now I have a little bit of rollover from that getting completed. You can see that we have approximately 3 turns left on the construction of this. I'm actually going to move it down the queue and start working on the next one. And one of the reasons that I'm not super interested in getting another one of these constructed is we're only going to get 8 industry until we can get onto one of these other planets. So 5 industry from the population plus 3 from the planet is what I'm really looking at here. We will be building rapidly in just a little bit, but right now what I need to do is get as many systems colonized as possible. Alright, he's got 2 probes, so let's look at that one and one. Heroshims and Hollow Planet, that's really good. And a remnant population, so 2 population pips. That's going to take several turns for them to get back to us, but once they do, that's actually going to be really beneficial for us. I can wait and get a few more curiosities with this hero, and we have already leveled up our first level. We have different options here. These 2 are the most significant, and obviously the most important one is going to be the one that provides industry. You can also provide some food if you end up with populations that use food. We don't generally need it. We can also increase our dust by 5%, but remember, in the early game, 5% is not very much. Percentage bonuses are much better in the mid to late game. Let's actually apply that. I always forget to hit that apply button. Alright. And the best part about this type of scout, once you click this button, it's basically set it and forget it. You never even have to worry about it. They just kind of do their own thing. And eventually, you just know where everything's at, which is really handy. And I'm willing to bet
the Empire welcomes all who embrace it.
That these types of ships are better at scouting than just about everything else. Okay, so we've already found... Interesting. So they have a rival outpost here on a medium Terran, which is also a endless planet. That is not cool. So this system almost certainly needs to colonize this before they get it. Let's take a look at what we have here to colonize. This is actually a pretty bad system for us. We do have a huge toxic and a large toxic. There are some good anomalies here, but this system has low industry, and so it's going to take an awful long time to get this colonized if we don't use a booster of some sort like Hyperium. So that might be difficult to do. Alright. We're going to continue to improve image with these guys. The United Empire. This is going to be very tricky because if they get this colonized, when they will, almost certainly, the amount of influence that this system is going to put out will eventually completely envelop this one and allow them to steal it from us. So we're probably going to have to go to war. Unfortunately, man, this would have been a good one for us because there's a huge lava system here, and that's really what we're looking for is lava worlds. Did I not scan this? I thought I did this already. Alright, hopefully we don't get too boxed in. We do have some more probes here. More Eden incense. Not sure that we're going to be able to do too much more scouting with this hero before we want to set him back down. But we'll probably try. Okay, so you can see we've rolled over a little bit more into this. I'm actually going to build one more of these, and then we're going to bring this guy out. And because we now have this, we're going to send him over there. Now, with only 2 movement, that's going to take a while. We'll go ahead and upgrade him so that he has more movement, and he can now do this in 4 turns. Okay, we found the United Empire's homeworld. Machine bacteria is still kind of important to me, but it may not be important enough to actually finish right now. And so what I might be doing instead is a different technology. Like this one, which is actually going to be more important to me in a couple turns. Alright, so I've got one more. Yeah, that's probably okay. I've got one more in construction. I'm hoping we find at least one more good system over here that we can take. And because of that, I might actually send this guy on his way. But we'll see what we come across first. What the? I don't think I meant to click him over there. Yeah, we'll send him back here and grab the anomalies on this system since we're going to grab it soon. Alright, let's see here. So I can't quite do this for another 2 turns, but I could make this cheaper. I think what we'll do though is continue to improve image. And now we can unlock that curiosity. Honeycomb scoop is pretty worthless for us. I'm going to go ahead and send a probe out that way and hopefully hit something. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get him in as a governor, which is going to add 15 industry and going to get this done a little bit more quickly. Okay, this is unfortunate, but we're gonna hopefully be able to outrace them. And then there's one up here that we want to try to grab. Let's take a look at this system. It's a desert world with 2 gas worlds. This is actually a pretty crap system. Not one that I'm super excited to grab, but one that I would definitely grab over anything. Or not over anything, but over nothing. We'll take that. This guy definitely needs to get that fast. Alright, so let's just double check. Over here, yeah, they're 2 turns away from getting that completed. But we should be able to... I just want to double check. So they got 9 turns. Okay. We can pop this, and we can pop that, and we can get done in 7. And as long as they don't send a fleet over here, we'll actually end up with 2 worlds or 2 planets. So we're able to outrace them right now.
Well, comrade.
Ooh. Okay. He just keeps on rolling. We're 1 turn away from our 3rd one. Do I want to grab that or do I want to grab that? I think we're going to grab this and then we're going to transition. Did I not negotiate with these guys? I guess we did introduce ourselves, so. Alright. That really sucks. So turn 12, the pirates took the system that we wanted to colonize. Which means that this guy is going all the way down the lane to that one at this point. We now have off-world agribusiness, so we can now do this.
You're a sly one, aren't you?
Explore ruin-type curiosities until you discover this. Alright. So this is a little bit awkward because we built an extra one that we can't use right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it extra engines. And we're gonna get it on its way. I'm not sure where we're gonna send it just yet. I'm really disappointed that we weren't able to get to that first. I'm kind of hoping that this hits something. I guess for now, we'll just send it like to there. Alright, we found another pirate. It's turn 12, and you can see how much work that one ship with the engines has done in terms of uncovering our constellation. Also, something we should have checked earlier is what is our constellation bonus? Extra science. Interesting. Transvine has been discovered. Alright, we're still outpacing them, but just barely. I might actually have to spend my 10 industry here because they have food shipments that are actually going to lower this significantly since they're running both boosters. So this is going to be a real tricky thing. And also, we need to retrofit our shadow now. Because, well, actually, we're 2 turns away from that. So this will be done in 2 turns. I'm just going to wait because there is no rollover from these. But if there were, I'll go ahead and add that. But I'm pretty certain there's never any rollover when population gets created. We can hack again. I want to hack to here. And hopefully we're very close to being able to just get these guys, but not quite. Alright, next turn I'll be able to pop that booster. I would not normally do this, but I cannot lose this system, otherwise we're in real trouble. Alright, so we're getting +6 for 2 more turns. That's going to put us at... I'm going to wait.
Welcome to the Singularity.
Alright. Notice that there is no construction on this, so there's no rollover, just like I said. Now this did go down in turns, mainly because we increased our industries quite significantly. Also, we now have an arid planet. This is going to be the biggest jump, because what we can do is move all of our population over to this planet and produce more industry, which is going to be really helpful for us. So we definitely need to get that done next. But also, we need a new scout ship. And because I'm about to spend all my titanium, I think we're actually going to go with that. And then weapon-wise, I don't know that it matters too much what weapons we put on here, but I think we're going to put those on there for now. One thing to note about these ships is that while they have 2 weapon slots, they have 0 defensive slots. Another thing to note about these ships is that our ship health by default is slightly lower than everybody else's, but we tend to have more weapons, particularly on our offensive class ships, and so these are actually glass cannons. And we'll see what the best designs, as far as I can think of, are for them. I think I'm gonna have to move this up in the queue. Actually, no. I need this to get done fast because we have 2 population moving to this system, and we only have 1 population slot left. So that's going to be important. Also, the industry will get from that significant. Technology time. So at this point, we don't really need Tundra, but I do need 2 more technologies from this tier. And I think what we're going to need is that, and then we'll get this one so that we can get the Boreal. This will allow us to mine the extra, whatchamacallits, the extra strategics, which are really important to us in the early game here. And then over here, we're going to go ahead and pop this booster, which is going to drop us down to 2 turns, which should, in theory, give us this colony, which is super important because the pirates took the only other one we can have. This is a little bit of a rough start. Okay, neutral sites can now trace hacks. That's not great for us. But luckily, it happened right now. We get 5 turns of reduced cost. We need 1 point, which we'll get next turn, and I should be able to get them. Yes, so I'm going to uncover secrets, which should reduce the cost of this significantly in 1 turn. Our ship's moving. The first of these 2 populations is about to arrive. Also, our boys out here doing work. Found some more systems for us. This one would actually be really good, but we won't be able to get there in time, I don't think. Quorum is pretty garbage. So we're not finding the kind of quality systems that I found in my previous game, which is unfortunate. How many turns till this gets done? 2. Perfect. So that's 1 turn. We should be able to grab this. Oh. Okay. Well. Crap. That is not being reduced by the hack for 5 turns like it said it would be. But maybe it only affects the praise number and not the... Well, that's unfortunate. Oh dear, I should have been running this law. Well, kind of pointless at this point, because I think both of these get done in a single turn now, right? Although this one got completed already. This one will get completed next turn. Okay, cool. Well, we got this one, and we actually have 2 sites colonized, which is good. There's also a subterranean here, which we're going to need. But basically, what we're going to do at this point in the game is very careful attention to our outputs on our systems. And any time that the output of any building produces less industry than what we can do from a population, we're just going to produce population. So right now, a single point of population produces 7 industry per pip. We have several buildings that will produce more than that, and so we should probably get some of those done. So the first building that we should get done is this one, because this is going to give us 20 industry, 10 for this planet, 10 for this planet, 10 for that, 10 for that, and 10 for that. So this is actually 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 industry. So that definitely needs to get built first. And then we can come back and look at this afterwards, but I am going to go ahead and queue up a population so that the overflow gets added to it. Alright. Next, baryonic shielding has been done. That should unlock some new curiosities, and also, if we ever do hit anything, manpower's low, that's going to be a problem for us for a little while. I'm at 9 per turn. We should activate this for 1 turn. That will give us 35 approval for a little while that's getting done. Ooh. A Steps World, probably can't outrace them. Probably just go to Arcturus. I don't see anything else we can do. I could praise these guys, but I don't want to spend my influence until I have the Cephalus locked up. Actually, I could have started this turn. That's probably alright. Hopefully we'll find something else out here that's worth settling. If not, this ship will hopefully be able to do something. Oh, also, yeah, I guess I can't roll over into that because my pop's full. That's fine. Alright, so this has now been done. And so this system, 16 plus 5 is 21 industry per population pin. So do I have anything else that I can build that's worth more than 21 industry? Well, this is worth 10. This would be worth 1. This would only be worth 10. So the answer is no. So we're going to build one of those. Hero has leveled up. More industry. That's all we want. We now own the system. 15% extra science is a nice little perk. And we've discovered Dark Glitter. Dark Glitter actually has a small place in the Riftborn. Because we have such a hard time generating manpower, it can actually be pretty useful. We now have this, and so what I'm going to do is move everybody over here because more industry. I guess could take, yeah, it's not enough to get this up to happy, so we're fine as it is. Food wise, we really need to get over here. Okay, so what we're looking at right now is we have 2 planets colonized. This population is full, so any future population are going to be built over here, which again is only going to put 7 or 8, I guess. 3 plus 5 is 8. So 8 industry, that's not enough industry. This one is going to give us 10, 20 industry, and if we get this, that's actually 30. Now, there's no reason to get this right this second. but it probably needs to be in the queue. Alright. Get our ships moving. And our first ship has arrived. So we can go ahead and colonize this. And notice that the cost of these upgrades is increased the more systems that you have. So now instead of 10 and 10, it's 20 and 20. So we're not going to be able to afford this. We're just going to have to let this one do its thing for now. And then I guess the decision I'm going to have to make is, do I try to outrace them? And the answer is probably not, and it's mainly because the Large Steppes world has really crappy industry, and we're just not going to be able to do it very fast. So, that being the case, this would have been a great system for us. Lava, lava, ash. But I don't think we're going to outrace them. They're 5 turns away at this point. So basically it's down to whatever we have over here, or if we can find another constellation to move to. And we're getting very close to being able to do that. But we're not quite there yet. Ooh, hacking time. Also this. This is now 300 because we got another system completed. Also, I don't need this running. Oh yeah, I do. Never mind. Yeah, we do need this running because of this one. We're getting extra industry from that law while that's running. Okay. This is 2 turns away. What the? Oh, yes. Yeah, no, that's not happening. And this is getting almost too far away to even bother with. We do have the ability to grab these worlds now. So perhaps we just come back and grab them. I guess that's what we're going to do, because I don't have anything better to do at the moment. Alright, Shadow in 1 turn. And there is actually a ruins here that could actually uncover what we need. Let's hope it's part of the quest. Doesn't look like it was. Were there any hidden nodes around us? Doesn't look like it. Alright, we're looking for ruins. Nope. Nope. Life form, subterranean. No ruins there. Alright, so now we have 2 population. So then the next thing is, what's going to give us more industry? Well, Another population is going to give us 21 more industry. So 21 more industry versus 10, or 10, or 2. Population it is. And actually, because I know how this goes, we're basically going to fill this planet up. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 4, 5, 6, 7. Once that planet's full, then we'll worry about other things. Alright, this pre-approval is nice. But the whole reason that we got this in the first place was to unlock this so that we could get our mining accelerated. Shadows completed.
The Empire will not tolerate this.
They're going to be aggressive towards us. We're going to have to deal with that eventually. And that is something I don't know exactly how it's going to go. In my earlier playthroughs, one of the things that I was not able to do, look at how much work this guy's getting done. One of the things I was not able to do was spend a lot of time playing around with the military. Okay, this ship has 1 probe left. We should head over here and see if we can't search these probes that are nearby. And while we're at it, we're going to get another population done. Then we're going to get that done. And actually, we'll do it in this order. And probably roll that behind there. Okay. Ooh. Okay. Cool. So we did find... Yes, this is what we're talking about. Well, it's not as good as I thought, but it's still pretty good. Lots of curiosities over here. Are there any ruins over here? Subterranean, life form. There is a ruin, but it's a higher level than what we currently can scan. What about on this system? Yeah, nope. Can't scan those ones either. Well, shucks. We're just not finding the ruins that we need, and I'm not able to build influence fast enough right now. Maybe... Oof. This is tough because we're going to need military ships very, very soon. In fact, I might even move those in front. Probably get a couple turns on it so we can get them done quickly. We're not going to finish them in 3 turns. Hopefully I'll remember to move them back. I really wish that this had been an easier quest. We'll go with the scavenged ram scoop. Grab what we can from this system and move on our way. Another population, interesting. So this is something that's different than my last playthrough as well. We've gotten a bunch of minor civs, like all kinds of minor civs, and I don't know how that's going to play out in the long run. The Hiroshim I kind of like, because they give food on sterile, which is good. They're also pacifists, which I don't care for. But anybody that gives food on sterile is probably okay. And then industrialists are probably okay. We're actually really close to this now. Yep, there we go. We're about to lose our Hiroshim, unfortunately. And there's not a lot I can do about it. I want to try to delay this as long as possible, so that we can eventually get them on the sterile world, and that should fix our food problems. Also, I have a probe I could send out, or I could save it, but I don't think there's any reason to save it. So I'm gonna send the probe out that way, and then get moving. See if we can't uncover some more curiosities. Curiosities with this faction are not as important as with other factions, I think. There are other things. Okay, cool. What we got here? Pretty meh. This system looks good. This system looks fantastic. That's a really good system for us. Which means we should try and get it. This is probably the closest world we have to that. So as soon as that gets completed, perhaps we build a Geist with some good engines to send over there. As far as the faction that's going to be the most beneficial to us, probably the scientists, but they're very unlikely to actually win. Well, looky there, they did. The Dirty Hands Act is what I was hoping for. And the Mineral Misers Act is both, they're both pretty good for us. We're going to be running this for a few more turns, however. How many more turns to be exact? 6. It's possible that I should switch that to Dirty Hands Act, but I'm not going to. And here's our little explorer. Now you tell me, in 21 turns, would a ship with probes have been able to uncover this much of the map? I don't think so. I think this is by far the most effective way to scout, is to build 1 or 2 of these types of ships and just let them go about doing as much as they can, because the first 20 turns of the game, again, is extremely safe. There's no military, there's very few pirates. Even if you get caught, you can retreat at least once, maybe twice. So you're just in a really good spot. Alright. We got 1 probe and 2 points of movement. I guess we'll go ahead and move towards the pirates, try to get that scouted and then get off their system. What else can I do? That's probably it. That was not supposed to happen, but I forgot once again to move this back in the queue, so now this is going to cost more because I'm bad. Bad at the game. Another population? And antimatter. Yeah, this is just bizarre. Alright, show location. So we need to send a fleet there. We'll get 30 Hyperium. That will be actually really helpful for us because we can accelerate the growth of this fleet with that Hyperium. And we're looking like we're in pretty good shape. This actually probably doesn't need to get done just yet, but that does because it's worth 10 industry. Where this is worth like 8, I think. And then pretty soon we're going to have this one unlocked. And we're going to be in a pretty good position to start snowballing some things. What needs to happen after this gets done is we need to get our Tier 1 system development up and running. And so that definitely needs to happen. Monsoon and Forest do not seem very critical at the moment. Nor does that. So probably gonna go with this. We have a lot of dust, and being able to buy things out actually is pretty beneficial. Also, this one is an enhanced version of the normal version of this building, and so it's a little bit better, and one that we should definitely consider picking up. Alright, anything else? I don't think so. We're getting a very, very tiny amount of manpower every turn. That manpower is being generated from our food, but we don't generate much food. But because we do have minor civs, we are getting a little bit. And actually, this civilization does good on fertile. We actually have a fertile world in one turn. We should put him over here and that will generate manpower for us. That'll be really good for us, actually. We lost a bunch of approval because our approval bonus fell off, but we're about to activate another one here soon. Because of that, though, I'm tempted to move people over here. I guess not yet. I don't want to lose any of these population until we get this colonized. Alright, what else can I do? I think that's it. Oh, hacking. Yes. What to do with our hacking? Well, the first thing to do is probably put some encryption on our forward systems. Second, consider running an accelerator on whatever we do decide to hack. I'm not sure if we bother hacking the pirates. We could steal some stuff from the pirates, but I think it's probably better to just hack the United Empire like that. And then I can run an accelerator like that. And that should lower the number of turns. Alright. Curiosity time. We're not going to fight these guys. But we did get our rewards, which is good. Titanium, which is great, and some dust, which is good, and 50 more titanium if we can destroy the pirates, which we won't do right now. But what we will do right now is queue up a compression singularity. Actually, I want these guys, because I want to roll over the rest of that into this, and then we'll roll over that one more time. So we'll roll over first, and then we'll roll over again, and then we'll get our first singularity, which will be fan-freaking-tastic. And then in addition to that, this guy will be here in one turn, and we'll be able to use our Hyperium to boost his colonization of that system. And then these guys, we should probably start praising them, and the reason I want to praise them is because they have strategic deposits that are critical to our success. So let's spend a little bit of influence praising these guys, just enough to get up to 50. That's probably it. Unfortunately, our population's getting large enough that running this law is getting problematic. And so we're only going to be able to run this law for a little bit longer. Alright. I'm looking for ruins. No ruins. Are there any quests? No. So it really doesn't matter. So we'll just grab the subterranean first. Since this is already colonized, we'll actually start gathering it, and that's titanium, so that was an awesome choice for us. And then I suppose we'll go ahead and blockade this and just kind of wait here for a few turns. Two Calgaroos on Virtuous. This should have a, whatchamacallit. None of these planets benefit Calgaroos. That's unfortunate. This is problematic. We'll have to build that first. Be the first to control at least 4 star systems in the same constellation. Darn. We're like 3 turns away from completing that. We should put down on the system with the largest population cap and the highest industry. So this one has 5 with 12. This one has 6 but with 9 base output. This one has 7 but with 8. And the Savannah is definitely not the right choice. So we'll go on the large ash. These are second only to Lava Worlds. And we can get those done in 5 with the booster. Alright. What is this? It's really unfortunate that we haven't acquired these guys yet, but there's nothing I can do about that. Alright, our first Singularity is done. I'm actually tempted to hold it or to put it here. Okay, now we're in a better spot here. So, you need to go over there, and you need to go over there. And you can kind of go over there. And... man, we just don't have enough food to keep these populations alive. And I don't have... the science to do what I need to do just yet. Gurus are already being lost because there's just no food over there. I guess drone networks could be a solution to this problem, so let's go ahead and get drone networks built, and then I'll get cerebral reality built behind that, and then I guess infinite supermarkets to get the approval high enough to jump a tier. That would be good. How much of this is... yeah, we're in a pretty good spot. Okay. More curiosities can be uncovered here. Got plenty of Eden incense. I think I'm going to move my governor over here. And then we're going to go ahead and throw down that. Alright. We can move to the atoll planet, which gives us 7 industry. It also has a titanium deposit, which is nice. So each one of these is going to give us 12 industry. 12 industry per population. Industry per population. Guess it doesn't matter which one of these gets completed because there is no rollover with population. There are no... Oh yes, there is. Okay. Let's get those two and then we'll get that. And we'll just get another one of those for now. Alright, and now we're producing this a little bit faster. Not a lot faster, though. We're gonna get away from these pirates. The pilgrims should be checked on real quick. Alright, so we're not quite ready to assist them. We need to build a Geist so that we can grab... Oh, we can't grab this though because of the ships there. Okay, we're gonna have to hold on that. My goodness, this is a big constellation. This is all part of the same constellation. Alright.
In the name.
So the first thing that I'm discovering about my strategy is that it's fairly dependent on having hot worlds that are not being scooped up by your adversaries. Because the ones that we're able to get on, it's gone pretty well for us. But in terms of like really being able to do much, it's been difficult to say the least. Neither of these are very useful. This is kind of good, but so is just getting a bunch of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can get 4 of those, fill this up. I need to get gas worlds unlocked before I can expand beyond that anyways. Alright, We got our first population collection bonus, so we're now at 10 Riftborn population. Also, we have our first Singularity down, and we can build another one very quickly right here. Be the first to possess 20 star system improvements. Looks like the Cravers had a good start. Arcturus we already took care of. Be the first to have 8 planets colonized in a system. That was our reward. And we got some Transmine, which is actually also a very good population booster that we could activate for up to, I think, 3 systems. But we're not quite there yet. Science is getting a little slow, so we definitely want to consider building some science buildings, particularly in places where we have multiple planets. And this would be the first system that I would want to consider that in. In 2 turns, we're going to be able to colonize this, which will be helpful, because that will also give us some industry. Alright. Ocean or toxic. Let's always search the subterraneans, because even if we uncover a strategic, which we do often, we can get a small cache of it at least. I definitely want to put the Singularity in this system, so we're going to wait one more turn for that to finish before we actually use it. Our hero's leveled up again. This could be a good time to get this. The food might actually be enough to keep our population from dying off in this system. Oh, but we moved him. He's not in this system anymore, is he? Okay. Well, in that case, this system definitely is going to benefit the most from the dust. Or do we just grab more industry? Probably just more industry. Interesting. Influence could be good for us, as could the dust. A random science, probably not as good as this. We've been hacked by somebody, probably pirates. That has almost certainly been hacked by... Alright, we're gonna retreat. The shadow is damaged. I think that's all the curiosities on that system now. So we can move him back over here and then over to Placidius. And hopefully he doesn't get destroyed. That would be a shame. Alright, and this system should complete this turn, which will be great. And then I want to cancel the beachhead bylaw for a while because we're not going to be colonizing anymore since we're out of colony ships for the short term. This will give us a nice little chunk of approval for a little while. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nothing's going to be quite better than that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll get 5 of those guys rocking and rolling. And in addition to that, we will really accelerate it. Alright, now we're working on getting our markets up. And so this is probably pretty close to where I'm going to end this first video. We're a little over 2 hours in, and we're 30 turns in, and like I said, this has been a little bit of a rougher start than my previous game. But that's not unexpected. Let's see if we get any more population. Nope, just some loot. We'll wait a few turns for him. So this is the point in the game at which we want to start transitioning into a few other things. This has been incredibly frustrating. The inability to find a ruin to actually achieve this quest, and the inability to acquire more influence has been problematic. We're actually going to run Toys for Boys, I think, but we might not run it right away. The reason that I want to run Toys for Boys is I want to get influence. We need to start collecting influence. And right now, everybody's already ecstatic, so we don't need to run it because there is an industry penalty to run it. In fact, we probably have enough that we could run the tax one and get some more dust for free. I'm curious how many of these systems would allow me to run the Super Tax Act without going negative. Let's find out. All of them. So at least for the next few turns, we can run the Tax Act and make a lot of dust. And then in the very near future, we're going to get galactic commodities and the ability to use dust to buy things out faster. Both of which are pretty good. We're already at 5 of 6 systems. We probably should have been at 6 of 6, but we've had some problems. Virtuous has a population over here that we need to reorganize a little bit. So I forgot about this. But we need to just keep making population at the moment. I could squeeze in a drone network to try to keep these guys alive. That might help a little bit. But there's not much else we can do with that. The nice thing is, at this point, we do have military ships in our blueprint designs, so we can start transitioning to military, but we're going to have to be very careful how we do that. If we're lucky, we might be able to take out the United Empire and have this entire region to ourselves. But in order to do that, what we're really going to have to do is get a fleet that's capable of taking out these pirates, and then take out Vale and their capital, and that should give us a chance to win. We're definitely going to have way more industry than them, so we can build ships faster than they can. And then we'll just have to decide how we go about handling the Sophons. We may end up befriending them, but we may end up getting aggressive with them as well. It'll just sort of depend on what we have going on. Once again, I want to point out just how much work this shadow has done. It's pretty amazing, and I think running a minimum of one of these, if not two of these, is absolutely the right play in almost every single game of Endless Space 2 right now for every faction. You should definitely have one of your scout ships equipped this way with max engines and just let them go. Now, some factions don't really have a great ability to do this with the scout ship design, but they tend to have a whole class in their colonizer that has lots of support module slots that you can do a similar thing with, and they're even cheaper to build. So I would always build a ship like this in the first few turns of the game, or use one that you start with and get it out there and let it do some work, because there is so much information that we now have that we never would have had I not sent this guy out. So I think that's definitely something that worked to our favor. Having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 systems, we really should have 6. This should have already been done. In any normal game, we would have had this already colonized. And then we might have had this colonized as well, which would also given us this. Like, there's a very good chance that given a slightly better start, or, you know, this guy not settling here, maybe grabbing that one instead, we'd be in an even better position than we are right now. We're not quite as far ahead as I was in my previous playthrough. The United Empire taking Vale definitely has put some pressure on us, and so we're going to have to deal with that. And that is exactly what we're going to do in the next game of the Riftborn. But the big things to take away from the Riftborn, and the thing that I want to point out that we're really close to achieving already, is we are 6 population away from hitting this. And this is a huge power spike for us, and something that we will achieve before turn 30. There is almost no doubt in my mind that before turn 50, we will have unlocked this. That will happen. There are a few things that could slow that down, but we're on pace to have over 50 Riftborn population by turn 50. Things are going to ramp up quite significantly once this gets acquired in just a few turns, and we're building basically 3 or 4 population per turn because we have so many sites that are building them. So this is one of the ways that this faction is able to get a nice head start in the game, is by rushing their population to get this unlocked. Once you get this unlocked, it's less of an importance to rush to this, and you can focus on building quite a few other things in between, because the unlock bonus is just not as good. But this bonus is so good and so important that you get it early. The other thing is that we really need to focus on any locations that have strategic resources, because just like the Vaulters, we have a steady way to spend them. And so we're definitely going to be spending them a lot. I am probably jumping over with one of our ships at some point. So we're going to snag this territory up, hopefully, before anybody else can. And in fact, I may go ahead and do that while I'm thinking about it. These engines are slightly better than those. Oof. They also cost more industry to construct. But it will get there just a hair faster. 6 turns. That's too many turns to wait. So what I'm going to do instead is build an empty one and then retrofit it with our dust. Three turns, much more reasonable. And then we'll just send that directly across space. That's going to be the fastest way that it gets there, almost regardless of which direction it goes. I suppose if I started it here, it's a little dangerous to go all the way to the Sofan territory and then cross here. It's going to be safer to get it that way. So I don't want to forget to do that, so I am going to go ahead and get that set up. But yeah, this is where we're going to end the video tonight, and I will be playing this quite a bit over the next couple of days. I'm off for the next 4 days, so I should have plenty of time to get some more games with the Riftborn in. I hope you guys are enjoying this series, and if you are, please leave a comment, please give me a like, and we'll see you next time. Have a great night.